ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वतीदेवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we welcome all the participants to this day 2 of our 6 session course, which is entitled Gita for Life. Yesterday we studied a very important topic about searching for happiness, and as we are proceeding ahead, today we will be discussing about what is our real identity. This will be a session of an hour and 15 minutes, so I request all participants kind attention. We'll just recap quickly what we saw in the previous session. We were discussing about search for happiness. We saw 5 things related to happiness. First, we saw what are the different levels of happiness. We discussed that happiness can be perceived at the level of senses, then higher is the level of mind, and then still higher is the level of intelligence, and then the highest is at the level of ego. Then we discuss what is our experience of happiness currently. The happiness which we are right now learning or experiencing is nature of temporary. It's very temporary. As soon as the objects are taken away from our senses, then that happiness is lost. Then second characteristic of our experience of happiness is it is illusory. Sometimes many things are promised, more happiness is promised, but what we get is very, very little or very meager happiness. And sometimes that happiness turns into misery and doesn't last for a long time. Then third thing, very important thing which we saw, that this happiness which we experience, it's same as what animals also experience. So we saw that there are 4 things which are common between animals and humans. The acronym which we studied was SEED, SEED. S for sleeping, E for eating, second E for enjoyment, and D for defending or protecting oneself. Then we saw, though we are getting happiness in life, there are some problems which stops our happiness and turns it into misery. The problems are of 2 types. There are some problems which are of relative types, and some problems are absolute or real types. When we solve temporary or relative problems, what we get is a relative happiness. And when we solve the real problems, what we get is a real happiness. We saw there are some relative problems like poverty, like unemployment, being ugly, not getting married, etc. But if we solve these relative problems, which are common to some people but they are not experienced by all, such problems, if we solve, what we get is a relative happiness, which also lasts for only some time, which is related to only that situation. But second thing is, we saw what are the real problems. If we solve those real problems, then what we'll get is the real happiness. So real problems, we saw there were 7 problems. Out of this, 4 were related to body, BODY. B stands for birth, O stands for old age, D for disease, and Y for Yamraj or death. We saw 3 problems were accompanying this 4. 3 problems, the disturbances were B for Adi Bhautik or social disturbances, A for Adhyatmik or mental disturbances, and D for Adi Daivik, that means natural disturbances. So BAD, a bad body. So these were 7 common problems which everybody gets, nobody wants it, and still nobody can avoid it. Then we saw what are the solutions offered by the society today. The acronym was SMS. S stands for continuous sense gratification along with the help of scientific advancement. So what we can do when we start just enjoying our senses, temporarily we may experience some happiness, but that doesn't solve any of these 8 or 7 problems. Ostrich mentality we discussed under this. Then we saw M for mental tricks, doing some mental adjustment like positive thinking or some numerology or some thought process, some good thoughts, happy thoughts. They are not going to solve these problems for a long time. And so that was mental tricks given by so many self-help books. Third thing which we saw was S for superficial religion. Like we go for some vrata, some baba, some sacred bath, some rituals, some astrology, but not going to the deep, not going to the depth of what is exactly the purpose of spiritual things. Just sticking to the rituals without the spirit. That's also not going to solve the problem. Then we saw then what is the exact problem humans are facing. When all these problems can be solved and we can get a permanent happiness. Then we saw animals and humans, they are completely different, and humans beings are gifted with so much sharp intelligence. And this intelligence can be used for many good things. Like animals, they can only see for what is good for their uh, sleeping, eating, defending, and enjoying. But humans can go beyond and look for more happiness. We saw A for ability to ask questions, B for inquiring for a bliss which is beyond just this seed or four common activities ahara nidra bhayamaitunam. C for choice. Human beings, they don't react but they respond, so that responsibility comes from their uh, freedom of choice, that is C. And D for determination to follow this intelligence and perform these first three things. Then we saw that human beings, if they use their intelligence in asking intelligent quality questions, then we can find solution to these all real problems. Going ahead, we are trying to answer some important questions or inquiries which humans should ask. First inquiry is, what is birth? How did I land here? How I came here? What is death? After this life, where I'm going to lead? What is my next destination? Is the life after death a fact or just a fiction or some just stories? And some questions like, what I'm trying to achieve here? Hmm. मेरे मन ये बता दे तू किस और चला है तू क्या पाया नहीं तूने जिसे ढूंढ रहा है तो हम जानते नहीं, we don't know what exactly we are looking for. And such questions if we ask, then we can lead to the permanent solutions for these permanent problems, leading to permanent happiness. Now let's try to understand today the most important question is, who am I? What is my real identity? Let's connect to our own self. Getting connected or having connection, it's such an important thing in today's age. We all want to be connected with all our friends. We all want to be connected with our relatives. We want to be connected with our colleagues. We want to get connected with different countries. We want to have information of every place. But with this internet and social media and so many other apps, we're trying to connect with the world around. But the most important person to get connected with is first one is our own self. If we are not connected with our own self, then it's very difficult to connect with others. So let's try to understand in next an hour what is our real identity. Let me give an example. When we meet people, we introduce ourselves. When people ask, who are you? Can you introduce yourself? And how do we introduce ourselves? We may say our name, my name is so and so. We may say our village name, I am from this and this town. We may say our nationality, I am Indian, I am American. We may say our profession, I am a doctor, I am engineer, or I am a teacher, or I am a housewife. Whatever our profession, we may tell about that. Or we may tell about our religion, I am Hindu, I am Muslim. Or we may tell about our gender, I am male, I am female. But friends, all these identities are simply related to our body. This body is born in this village. This body is this many years old. This body is born in India. This body is having male characteristics or female characteristics. This body being born in a Hindu family is following Hindu tradition. So if we clearly see, all our identities are actually centered around this body. In the morning, when we get up and look in the mirror, the image which we see in the mirror, we identify with that image because this is me. This is who am I. So right now we are identifying with our bodies. Let's try to understand, do we are really the bodies? To make it simple, suppose, imagine that you are going on a road, a mountain road, and you happen to see a bicycle rider riding on a bicycle, and accidentally another car comes and hits its bicycle. And the boy who was cycling on the bicycle, he just falls down, starts bleeding. The cycle is also damaged and impaired. And when you see closely, you understand that this is your friend, Mr. So and so. So if you go close, which one you will pick up first? Will you pick up your friend first, or you will pick up the bicycle first? What is your answer? Many of you may say that I will pick up my friend first. Okay, a bicycle is not so costly thing. But if your friend is going on a very sophisticated high-end mobike, and this mobike may be costing lakhs of rupees, and this man who is your friend is again driving on the same vehicle, and then he meets an accident. And now you have a friend who is damaged, and you have a vehicle of his which is also in a damaged condition. Which one you will pick up now? Still you will pick up friend. Let's go ahead. Now if your friend is traveling in a very posh high-end Mercedes car, now if you see that car is also there and a friend is also there, whom you will pick up? Your answer is still clear, that you will pick up the friend first. Now, before I ask these questions again, let me give you some piece of information which will add to your knowledge. What do doctors say? Dr. Harry Manson, who is a professor of anatomy from Illinois College of Medicine, he analyzed what is this human body. The human body, if we divide into different chemicals, like if we incinerate this body or burn this body and take out all the chemicals by chemical process, what we will get is mostly human body has more than 60% of water. And then we have some calcium 5 pounds, some phosphate 1.5 pound, some potassium 9 ounces, sulfur 6 ounces, sodium 6 ounces, magnesium 1, then iron, copper, iodine, and of course so many other things like zinc and tungsten and so many micromolecules. Now if all these chemicals Dr. Harry Manson collected from the human body, and he said, now if I go in the market and try to find out what is the selling cost of all these chemicals, then he came to understand that the cost of all these chemicals worth only rupees 120, 120. So this is maybe 10 years before. So right now the cost may have increased to maybe maximum 150 rupees. Now if you see that the, the accessories, like when our bodies they get impaired or we get diseased or we get damaged, we spend actually more than 150 rupees for each doctor's visit or some medicines or even the clothes or even the accessories like our vest belt or earrings or whatever cosmetics which we use, they definitely cost more than 150. So if our body is only costing 150 or 120 for that matter, then why we are spending so much money on this body? Now if you know that your body's cost is 120 or 150, then now if you go on the road and you see that your friend is traveling, now which one you will pick up? You will pick a friend or a bicycle? The bicycle which is high end will be costing you around 15-20,000 rupees and the body only costing 120 rupees. But still you will pick up the friend. In the second case also, though the vehicle is costing lakhs of rupees and the body costs only 120 rupees, but still will pick up the mobike, not the mobike, but your friend first. And even if there is a high-end crores of rupees worth car, still you will pick up your friend first. Why? Because we are not looking for the body. We are looking for somebody else who is residing in the body. So in our daily life, we get a clue that we are not just these bodies which are worth only 120 rupees, but we are someone who is beyond this body, to whom we will look for. Like we take our selfies, we can see in this picture that we are not just skeleton or muscles or blood of which we are trying to get selfies or photographs, but we are trying to find out our real self. Now in this age of selfies, let's try to first understand what is our real self. What is our real identity? Who am I? Now, we'll be seeing these things through five different factors. First is by common sense, we'll try to analyze. Second thing, by observing ourselves, we'll try to understand to whom actually this I refers to. Then observing and dealing with others, how we deal. Then we'll try to understand what is the real identity of the persons with whom we are dealing with. Then fourth thing, we'll try to understand what the scientists tell about us. What is our real identity? And then after seeing science, then we'll come to Bhagavad Gita, that what the scriptures talk about our real identity. The first is the common sense. You may have visited so many death incidences or last rite situations. When you go there, the typical scene is the person who is dead is sleeping in the middle, and people who are related to him, those who are very, very anxious and depressed and pained by his death, they are all surrounding him, sitting there, crying, sobbing, and lamenting. Why this person left me? Everybody is saying he was a very nice person. Why did he leave? He should not have left. And we are telling that वो चले गए, खूप चांगले होते, गेले. But कौन गेले? कौन चले गए? Who left? The person who we were seeing every day, or the body which we are seeing every day, the body is still lying there, sleeping in front of us. Like when I first time saw death, I was in maybe 6th standard. When my grandfather left his body, I went to my village, and first time when I saw the scene, it was quite intriguing, and I could not understand what exactly happened. What is difference between the person who is sleeping in the middle and people who are crying outside? And I realized that people who are crying, they are still having some emotions, some activities. But the person who is sleeping in the middle doesn't look like even sleeping, something more than that. Then I realized that this person who was sleeping was having cotton buds in his nose, nostrils. So that gave me some clue that there is some difference here. Normally, when people breathe, they can't afford to have cotton buds in their nostrils, but now this person is not able to breathe. So death means for me that time was just stoppage of breathing. But why people are lamenting? Who left? It's a common sense to ask this question. When we say this person was very nice, he left us. Who is that person who left? If he was a body is still lying in front of us. Then who exactly left? Of course not the body, but somebody who was beyond the body. Now, can you identify or name this personality? Who is this person? Many of you may not be able to identify. I will give you next clue. Can you identify this person? Now many of you can get some clue that he looks like he is very famous personality and we have seen him somewhere, but some people may not still recognize who he is. Now you can recognize who he is. He is none other than Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. All these three photographs are of the same personality, one from his childhood, one in his youth, and another when he was old. Now, when I showed you the childhood photograph, many of us could not understand or could not identify. Why? Because we have seen photographs of Gandhi when he was old or maximum when he was young. We have never seen him or seen photograph when he was a child. Now the child's body, then the young man's body and the old person's body looks so different. Even medically, by some studies, it has been proved that human cells which form this body, in 7 years, almost all the cells of this body are completely replaced by new cells. That his body is completely changing. Internally, the cells have changed in 7 years. Externally, the appearance, as we see in this picture, also changes. So, body is changing, but the identification that I am that personality, Mohandas, that remains constant. So, if body is changing and identity is fixed, that means the identity is something different than this body. So, this is a common sense who left and who is that person who is changing the bodies throughout life, but still his identity remains same. So, who is that personality living inside or beyond this body? Now, When we meet a great personality, when we observe ourselves, now like when we go to doctor and says that when we have a headache, what we say? My head is aching. मेरा सर दुख रहा है, माझं डोकं दुखतंय. When we say that I have pain in my leg, my leg is paining, or if our full body is paining, then we say that my full body is paining. मेरा बदन दुख रहा है, माझं अंग दुखतंय. So we refer to this body as my body. We never say in English or Hindi or Tamil or Bengali or Marathi that I this body. I the head is aching. I the body is aching. No, we say my body, my head, my legs. One time, one Swamiji, one sannyasi, he went to one school, primary school, and he said to teachers that I want to teach Bhagavad Gita to students. Now, teacher said, sorry, sir, teaching Bhagavad Gita to such small kids, very complicated. It's such a grave and deep subject matter. You need not. The Swamiji said, no, 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 I will make it very simple to understand. And then Swamiji came on the stage and he asked for who is the topper in your class. One boy very shyly he came forward, stood in front. Swamiji said, I am going to ask you some questions. Please answer. Now this boy became so tense. Then Swamiji asked first question. He pulled on his pants and he said, what is this? The boy became scared and he said, sir, this is my pant. Swamiji said, very good. Nicely answered. Then he touched his sleeves. What is this? He said, this is my shirt. Swamiji said, very good. Boy became very confident. Then Swamiji touched the wristwatch and he asked, what is this? Then the boy said, this is my wristwatch. Now boy became very confident. Then Swamiji touched his hairs and said, what is this? This is my hair. What is this? This is my nose. What is this? This is my ears. This is my body. Then Swamiji asked, last question, if this is your body, where are you? Then the boy felt this is out of syllabus. I never thought about it, neither my teacher told me this. Then Swamiji said, thank you very much, you can go and sit down. And then Swamiji announced to the teacher saying that even a boy knows that this is my dress and this is my body, but this is not I, the body. So it's very, very common sense. Just we even observe our own statements and the way we compose statements, it's very clear that we are referring to somebody who is holding this body, but not to the body as a self. Now, third thing, how we deal with others. When person is alive and when person is dead, our interactions with him, our dealings with him, our behavior towards him completely changes. Suppose you meet a very, very great personality and he said, let's shake hands. If he forwards his hand, you also want to have shake hand, but then you clean your hands and then you try to shake hands. But same personality, suppose he dies and you go and visit his funeral rites. So you happen to just visit the place, or to speak of touching the dead body. When you come back home, what happens? Your mother will not allow you to go inside the house. First you will take bath, or at least wash yourself, and then wash your clothes and then go inside. The same personality he was live, when you are dealing with him, you are cleaning yourself and then touching him. But now when you are dealing with him after he is dead, after touching him, you are cleaning yourself. There is so much difference between dealing with dead body and live body. I remember when we were in first year of medical college, we were supposed to do dissection of dead bodies. The hall in which our anatomy classes were happening was holding around like 20 male and female dead bodies, and around one table of one dead body, around 20 students were sitting, and these 20 students were supposed to dissect that whole body and understand parts of it. But first day when we go inside the hall, it smells so bad, and then the bodies to look upon is so ghastly, and all dead bodies fully naked, they are just lying on the tables, and it's a ghastly scene to look forward. And then teachers what they do, 3-4 दिन तक उस डेड बॉडी के बाजू में से बिठा के रखते. Why? Just to get accustomed to seeing dead bodies. Now bodies every day we are seeing, but these are live bodies. But now this is another body, which is dead body. Many people, many times, every batch almost, mm, whenever people are going, leaving the hall, some girl, by some mistake, her opening gets stuck into some table, and if she is the last one to get out of the hall, then she literally screams. Why she screams? Because she understands that these are not dead and they cannot move. And if I am feeling that somebody is holding my dress, then it's an abnormal thing. So when a dead body moves, we become scared. But when a live body moves, we are not scared. So why our dealings with dead and live are so different? One man who was driving a cadaver van. After post-mortem, he was traveling the dead bodies from one place to another place. In his old age, he decided that enough. I'm not going to transport dead bodies anymore. I'm going to purchase a taxi and have passengers in it. So then he purchased a taxi and then he came to Bombay and first passenger, he asked the address where to go. The passenger told. Passenger was sitting behind. It was a long journey, 1.5 hours. And then the passenger went to sleep. Then driver, he was knowing the path. He was driving very calmly, coolly. Then after 1.5 hours, as soon as the passenger woke up, he realized that he just about to miss the important turn. And then the passenger, he extended his hands and he tapped on the shoulder of the driver and said, "Uncle, uncle, uncle, please take the next right." And as soon as this person tapped this man became so panicked, so afraid. He could not control his steering and he just banged on the divider. After composing himself, the passenger asked the driver, "Sirji, I was just telling you to take right. Why you become so panic?" He said, "Till yesterday I was driving cadaver van and nobody tapped me from behind. But it's the first time that some passenger is tapping me from behind, so I got scared. I'm sorry." So our dealings with dead and live are so different. So that signifies that there is some important difference. We are not just these bodies, but someone who is beyond the bodies. Now, let's understand that when we deal with human beings are having different emotions. Mm. Like right now, people are trying to redevelop or recreate the human bodies or the functions of human body in the terms of artificial intelligence or robotics. But we see that these are like 8 emotions: being happy, feeling anger, depression, fear, or getting surprised, confused, or showing affection or love to somebody, or getting frustrated. All these emotions are not expressed or felt by a machine. But only living beings, only human beings or living beings can go through these emotions. When a person clicks a photographs and when a machine clicks a photograph, there is a difference. Of course, the output is same, but when a person is clicking a red rose, suppose a young man from a college days is trying to click a red rose. But when he is seeing that red rose through his camera, so many memories may flash through his mind, and he may experience so many emotions, maybe positive, maybe negative, maybe of love, maybe of frustrations. But when a cameraman or just a robot or a live camera clicks a rose, it will not create any emotions. So yes, we may see that these bodies are working just like machines work, but no, machines, they don't feel like what we feel. So we are definitely not just machines or just the bodies, but someone who is beyond the body. Now let's come to the fourth level of understanding, that is science. The science describes two important phenomena which are like a breakthrough in the scientific advancement. One is called as near death experience or also called as out of body experience. So many patients who were facing death or facing some situation where they are almost unconscious or going through a coma stage. So they feel, or just before death, they feel some different feelings and experiences. And these are caught by so many scientists. And then they compiled all of them together and gave them a name, near death experience. So, scientists named Kenneth Ring and Bruce Grayson, they founded this society called as International Association of Near Death Studies. Now, this society actually studied more than 500 cases of people who experience a strange emotions or strange phenomena. Some of the experiences of them are written here. One is some felt hmm, like when person is going through an operation or open heart surgery where he's completely unconscious, or a person who is has already left the body or almost dead, but then with some CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, he comes back. So with that, in that middle time, or when he was completely unconscious, some patients they expressed their feelings as some of these. First, some felt positive emotions of peace and a sense of being removed from the world. बहुत शांति का अनुभव किया किसी ने, मेरे शरीर से मैं बाहर निकल गया था, ऐसा अनुभव हुआ. Some people seeing a dark tunnel or ghostly beings attacking them with ropes. Somebody is coming to catch me, tie me. Some said doctors and nurses trying to resuscitate them. Some could see that doctors and nurses were coming around and trying to work on me, trying to revive me. Another person, he said that sudden immersion into powerful light. I was just going into some divine light. An intense feeling of unconditional love, or some being alive, giving a life review, given a life review. Whole life as if playing the full reel in front of his eyes. So one patient who was getting operated in operation table, one case study describes that after the operation, the patient told doctor, the doctor, what is this? I'm going under such a serious operation and you all are discussing football match. It's not good. It's not a topic to be discussed on the operation table. Doctor was amazed. How can he know that we are discussing about football match? Then he asked some more questions and patient answered correctly. Then he said, I didn't just hear you, but I could also see you all. I could see that you were standing here, your assistant doctor was standing on your right, and then the main nurse was standing here, the assistant nurse was standing here, and here were instruments, here were some monitors, and the whole arrangement inside the operation theater he could see. Doctor said, amazed. Patient said, not just that. I could go around the hospital. Not even that, I went even to the terrace of the hospital. Doctors got the terrace open because that terrace was locked since so many years. And as soon as they opened the terrace, they found whatever descriptions were given by the patient, that here are some belongings, here are some broken instruments, here are some tires, whatever. And then all these things were confirmed as they opened the terrace. So not just one, hundreds of such cases were recognized and noted down by these two doctors and formed this association. Now, science cannot describe why these things happen. How can a person whose brain, whose heart, whose all nerve cells are there in the body, and he is lying in front of us, what is that went outside and was experiencing and recollecting all these memories? What part of him just went out of his body? So the out of body experience or near the experience, how it exactly happens, scientists are not able to answer that. So Michael Sabom, who was also a scientist, he didn't believe all these experiences and he tried to make his own studies. So when he studied more than 2000 cases, he made a statement in a journal, in his article, saying that human consciousness can function independent of the brain activity. Normally we feel that we are conscious or we are feeling because our brains are intact, our brains are working. But he said that in such cases, brains are lying on the operation table, but a person is still recollecting, still conscious. So he said this consciousness is beyond the function of brain. So we are not brain, we are not this body. We are someone who is a conscious being who is beyond this body. Then there is another phenomenon found by the scientists which is called as reincarnation or punarjanma. So Ian Stevenson, a Carlson professor of psychiatry from the University of Virginia, he investigated over 2000 cases of spontaneous reincarnation memories. Now, spontaneous reincarnation memories means that many kids or children or even grown-up people, they started recollecting something which is never experienced in their lifetime. And even a doctor from Bangalore, Indian, whose name is Satwat Patricha, so she also noted and helped this Dr. Ian Stevenson in his case studies. One time when my colleague, my senior, he was giving this presentation about reincarnation, one person who was sitting there, he raised his hand and he said, "Sir, I am the case of reincarnation. They called him forward and he started retelling his story. And he said, my name is Deep Kapadia. I am from Bombay. When I was small, 6 months old, I started recollecting something. As I started speaking, I just started murmuring a name, Udaipur, Udaipur. But Udaipur was never visited by even my parents. And still I was recollecting something about Udaipur. When he grown up 2.5 years old, he started speaking languages which were strange to even his parents and family members. He started speaking 4 languages, including Hindi, Marwadi, and then English and one more. So these 4 languages he was studying. So these parents they became afraid. What is this? What is this happening with our son? And they approached their doctor, whose name was Dr. Mehtani. And Dr. Mehtani said that he is 2.5 years old, but his memory or his IQ is developed as if of a 10-year-old boy. And then the parents were more scared that what's happening. And he started recollecting that I am from Udaipur. I belong to Udaipur. There is my family. My kids are staying there. So I want to go and stay with them. Go to Udaipur. Let's go. Now parents become scared. And then they approach a psychologist, parapsychologist, whose name was Dr. Ramakant Kini. Ramakanji told that nothing to worry. This is simply a case of reincarnation. What you do, you just follow what this child is telling you to do. And interestingly, doctor agreed that he will also come along. And this family was hailing from Gujarat. So Gujarati a magazine called a Chitralekha, there one reporter also accompanied. His name was also given. I could not remember right now. Yeah, Bharat Ghelani. So Bharat Ghelani was a Gujarat magazine reporter, Chitralekha. So he also accompanied the parents. And the parents then boarded a bus to Udaipur. As soon as Udaipur came, without indicated by the parents, the child immediately picked up the luggage and said, Udaipur aa gaya, chalo hame utarna hai. And then they got down. And then the child could exactly tell the address to the vehicles and then reached the house. As soon as they reached the house, they said that this is your father. We are coming from Bombay. The elderly son who was sitting there was amazed to see that how can this small child claim that he is my father. He understood he doubted that this party from Bombay maybe today they are telling that you are our son and then they may claim some property. So this looks like some goof up. So he said, no, I don't believe all these things. You just go back. And the son said, no, I will try to give some proofs that I am your father. Then he said, your father was a security guard in City Palace. He said, yes. And he said, now I know, let's go to the palace, the king's palace, and I will show you things which I know. And they went there, and the child pointed out so 3, 4 different fans who were running on kerosene. Now we in today's age have never heard of fans working on kerosene. The child identified and make them work also by pouring a kerosene and doing some gimmicks. So then the child said, now just go up and on the first floor there is a painting, very large painting. You just remove that painting and you will find that there is an exit pathway behind that painting. And as they approached the painting, they removed the painting and they could see that there was a very confidential path was going out from the palace. Then the child said, okay, I'll show also one more entrance to this palace, which is from a distant place, but right now it is all infested with snakes. And the child took them to that entrance, and the entrance was actually existing and was infested with so many snakes. Then this child told that actually I was working here as a security guard when the king, whose name was King Maharana Fateh Singh, was ruling. And he said that actually I was murdered. I was murdered by giving a poisonous milk. And he related the whole story. So now this story, which was being covered by this magazine, was also reported by the scientist Ian Stevenson. And then Dalai Lama also came and visited and met this boy. Even if you go today on internet, if you type Deep Kapadia, a case of reincarnation, you can still find the facts about that. Oxford University also reported his case in their journal. So reincarnation is not just believed by Indians, but it is so much studied and believed and accepted as a fact by the scientific world, even in the Western countries. So it's not just one scientist or two scientists, but there are so many who studied such cases and wrote so many books explaining all these cases. Like many lives, many masters, children who remember previous lives, and I had lived before. So like that, many countries, many scientists, they have studied and expressed their facts about reincarnation. And the problem is when child is remembering his past memories, now the brain or the heart or the neurons of that body is already been destroyed, either burned or buried. The body which is right now he is carrying is completely new brain, new memory, new nerve system, new heart. Now how can these memories from the previous body enter this new body? Hmm. What is the way? How it came? Did it came by Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or some any other technology? Because the two bodies are completely different. Now there has to be some common link between these two bodies. So what is that common link? That is a question. So with all these different logics, like using the common sense, then using our dealing with ourselves and observing others, how we deal with dead bodies and live bodies, and then using scientific facts, now we come to know that we are somebody who is beyond this body. Now let's try to understand what the Gita, the text of Gita, talks about. Gita tells that we are not this body, we are not this temporary body, but we are eternal spiritual soul who is living inside the body. हम ये मरने वाला दिखने वाला शरीर नहीं है, किंतु हम इस शरीर में रहने वाले एक आध्यात्मिक स्फुल्लिंग आत्मा या जीव है. Now Gita talks about two types of reincarnation. One is called as internal reincarnation and another is external reincarnation. Internal reincarnation is where a person without changing his identity keeps changing his bodies. Like we all see in our present life, from a childhood, we change the body of a child which was very, very small, small finger, small hand, small heart, small brain. Then we grow up as a youth body which has completely different cells and completely different composition. And then we go to again old body, which is again another different body. So dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara. We go from a childhood to adulthood to old age. Tatha dehanta prapti. So this first is going through different bodies in the present life. It is called as internal reincarnation. And when we travel from this one body to another body, another identity, in another family, or another species, that is called as external reincarnation. So Gita talks about this fact very, very clearly. So thus we can prove that the soul exists, who is whose symptom is consciousness and who exists beyond this body. So we saw common sense, we saw observing ourselves, observing others, then some scientific studies, and lastly the scriptures. So conclusion is, I am not this temporary body, but I am the eternal, always existing spiritual soul. Many times people feel that we are human beings and we are trying to have some spiritual experience by going through all these courses, by meditating, by doing some yoga, but it's rather opposite. We are actually a spiritual being and we are trying to have a human experience. We are not humans. These bodies are human bodies, are animal bodies as we see around. But I myself, is a spiritual being and we are right now having a human experience. So there is a change of paradigm when we understand that we are not this body, but we are a conscious spiritual being, soul or jiva, atma, which is residing inside the body. Now let's try to understand this soul little more. There are some frequently asked questions or commonly asked questions about this soul. So how many bodies do we actually have? So we have two types of bodies which we wear, just like a person who wears an external coat. Now this external coat is compared to our gross body, the body which is made of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The hands, legs, face, heart, brain, all this gross matter which we see, this is our present gross body. Now there is another body which exists inside this gross body called as subtle body. Now the subtle body is made of three things. First is our mind, which is subtle than our gross hands and legs, which we can't see, but we can experience that mind. Second thing is intelligence, which we may not see, but we have. And third is ego, our sense of identity. So this mind, intelligence and ego, or MBA, man, buddhi or ahankar, these constitute our subtle bodies. So gross body is gross body which we see in the mirror, and subtle body is MBA, mind, buddhi, man, buddhi and ahankar. And then there is a spiritual body or the soul per se who actually wears or holds these two bodies. Like that, we have two bodies, one is gross and another is subtle body. Now, how exactly this body and soul they come together, then they work around? To understand this, we will give some examples. First is a house and a house owner. Now, house, we may change our houses from one house to another house. Residing in one house, we may try to decorate our house. We paint it differently on different years. We try to change different accessories which we use inside the house. We try to repair some parts of the house. But while changing all these different aspects of the house owner doesn't lose his own identity. Similarly, the soul who is living inside this body, which is like a palace having nine gates or doors and windows, like we have eyes, nose, mouth, ears, these are like windows and doors. So this is also a house, but we are living inside this house. So externally we may try to decorate this body, we may try to sometimes repair this body, but the person who is staying inside, he remains the same. We may change from one house to another house, but still the person's identity doesn't change. Similarly, we may change from one body to another body in the next birth, but still our identity as a soul remains constant. Another beautiful example which is given is of a car and a driver. A car has lights, car has engine, car has exhaust, car has steering wheel, car has mirrors, car has and many other things. Similarly, this body is also having lights, like we have our eyes from where we see. We have our legs, which are like wheels. We have our digestion system, stomach, it's like a fuel tank or the processor. Then we have our ears, our sound horn, like we speak. So all this car can be compared to the body. But if there is a car and there is no driver inside, then that car cannot move. It can be just get parked in one corner. Unless an adult person, either with a remote or himself sitting inside controls the car cannot move on its own. Similarly, these bodies, when there is a driver inside that is soul, we call them a living person. But when the soul leaves, we start lamenting, saying that this is a dead body. So it's very easy to understand. The third analogy given is of a bird and a cage. There's one lady, one old lady, who brought a golden cage, and there was also a parrot inside. Now, the person who sold her the cage, he told him that you need to clean this cage every day, otherwise it will lose its shine. The lady took it to the heart, went to the home, and every day kept cleaning the cage. After 7 days, she realized that a bird who was singing nicely for last 7 days is no more singing, and is becoming weak, and he's put his neck down, and is about to die. She immediately went to the person and said, "What is this? You cheated me. It's just a 7 days and a bird is no more singing. You should give me my money back." He said, "But madam, what did you do? You told me to polish the cage. I'm every day polishing the cage." The person asked, "But are you feeding the parrot?" She said, "You didn't told me that." The person said, "It's a common sense that the cage needs cleaning, but the cleaning cannot feed the parrot. Parrot needs his another arrangement for feeding. So you need to feed the parrot, otherwise the parrot will just die." Similarly, modern society or we per se, we are just trying to clean or make it shine our bodies, but we are neglecting the soul who is staying inside. So after giving so many things to this body, so much gratification, so many things to enjoy, but body may feel fresh and youthful and happy, but still in the heart of heart we feel that there is some emptiness, some lacking in the heart. What is that? It is the soul who is crying. We may have smiling faces, but crying hearts. Why it happens? Because we start just addressing to the body, but we forget to address or feed the soul. Another example to understand this soul and body dynamics is a computer system. Very relevant example. Like we see in a computer, we have hardware. Like we have a RAM disk, then we have a hard disk, then we have a screen, we may have CPU, we may have a keyboard, a mouse. This is all hardware. Then inside the hardware, we have some software which is working. Now, software is taking help of all these hard things, but it's not the hard. It's something soft and subtle, which is working and moving around inside these hard things. Now, for the software and hardware to work, there has to be electric current which goes to the computer and makes everything dynamic or working. Similarly, this gross or hardware can be compared with our gross bodies. The software of the computer which cannot be seen but it still can be felt. Is it like our subtle body? Is it like our mind and intelligence, ego? And the electric current can be compared to the soul as such, which actually electrifies or gives the energy to this both bodies. Like in a computer, if we ask, where is the software located? Is software in the keypad? Is software in the screen? Or is software in the CPU? Is software in the RAM or the hard disk? Where exactly it is located? So we cannot pinpoint. Software is going everywhere and making function through everything. Similarly, mind, where is mind? If you ask you, where is the mind? Some people say mind is here in the heart. Because when you feel pain, when we see somebody in pain, immediately we touch our hearts. But when we are told that to solve some problem, then we don't scratch our hearts, but we scratch our head. Our mind starts thinking, but now we point it to the brain. So sometimes we point to the brain, sometimes we point to heart, but it's actually everywhere because it's a subtle thing, just like a software which runs through everywhere and make everything dynamic and functional. Similarly, the soft body, the subtle body, mind, intelligence, they go through everywhere. They use every part of our body. And then behind that is electric current which cannot be seen, but unless the plug is on, all software and hardware cannot work. Similarly, when the spirit soul is not there inside the body, all this mind or the gross body, they cannot work. A very Shastric example given by Shastras, this is from Shvetashvatara Upanishad, which talks about an analogy or example of a chariot. A chariot has horses and has reins or the ropes which tie the horses. Then there is a person or a charioteer, driver, who actually controls the horses through that threads, through that ropes. And then there is a passenger who is supposed to enjoy the whole trip. Now, these 5 horses are compared to 5 senses or the gross body of ours. Then there is a mind which is like the reins or the ropes which are tied to the horses. And the intelligence is compared to the chariot or the driver. Now, driver is supposed to control the ropes, that is mind, and through that mind is supposed to control the horses, which are like senses. And the soul is actually the owner of the whole thing, and he's supposed to enjoy as a passenger the whole ride. And he's supposed to direct that where we should go, where we should move. But right now, our mind and our senses are so uncontrolled and so powerful that right now our senses and our mind are dragging us everywhere, and the consciousness is just bewildered, thinking, when will this journey stop, or when will I will control this journey? So with if he uses that higher intelligence as we studied yesterday, then soul can exert its control over his own body and mind. Otherwise, he's just the witness and not the controller. So this is a nice analogy. The dead soul die, just like body can die if we shoot him, if we burn him, if we drown the body, or if oxygen is not there. The body can die, but soul cannot die. So Gita in the second chapter describes that this soul cannot be burned, cannot be weighted by the water, cannot be dried by air, it cannot be cut by any weapon. What happens exactly at the time of death? At the time of death, we just take out our gross body, which is our external coat, and with the subtle body, the soul moves ahead. Now, the subtle body, as I said, is comprised of mind and intelligence and ego. So that carries all the memories, all the desires, all the attachments. And with those desires and attachments, then we are given appropriate body which can fulfill all these desires which are born of previous life's impressions. And this soul, along with this subtle body, it goes to the another gross body in another womb, maybe human, maybe animal. Now, are there different souls in all the bodies? Yes. Every individual has their own different soul. They may be twins, but still they may have same exactly same looking bodies, but the souls are different. Then what is the size of the soul? Shastras tell Keshagra Shatabhagasya Shatadha Kalpitasya cha. So if you take hair, human hair, and the tip of hair, if we divide into 10,000 parts, so one part is equal to the size of the soul. That does not mean that soul is so much micrometer or nanometer or millimeter, but just to say that soul is very, very subtle, not gross. We cannot measure it under the electronic microscope because it's at the another level of dimensions. But the same minute soul, which is very, very small and very subtle, energizes our functions, make her function like ants. The small ants, they are also mechanized by this soul, and the big animals like elephants, they are also getting energy from this small spark that is soul. Does soul has a form? Just like hand gloves. Our gloves has 5 fingers. Why do gloves have 5 fingers, 4 big and 1 small thumb? Because our hands has that. Our hands has 4 fingers and 1 thumb. That's why gloves also have 4 fingers and a thumb. Similarly, our bodies, our gross body, right now we see that it has legs, it has hands, it has nose, it has a form. Why? Because the soul who is wearing this body, he has a form. Unless and until soul has a form, the gross bodies cannot have form. Just like because hands have form, the gloves have form. Similarly, because soul has form, the bodies have form. But soul has its own spiritual form. Where exactly this soul is situated? Gita tells, Riddeshe, that soul is situated at the region of heart. It's not in the heart, but in the region of heart. So even if you transplant the heart, the identity of the person doesn't change. Even if you put another person's heart, the identity doesn't change. He's still the same person because soul is not heart. Soul resides in the region of heart. So now the most important question is, okay, theoretically we understand that there is soul or there is somebody who is beyond the body, but can we see the soul? Is there any process which can make us see the soul? Now this is a photograph of a sesame seeds. तिल का बीज है. तो तिल और sesame seeds, do they have oil inside it? तिल के सीड्स के अंदर क्या तेल है? ऑफ कोर्स है, लेकिन अभी हम उसको देख नहीं सकते. ये हम क्यों मानते हैं कि इसमें तेल है? कि we know if we do some processing, if we compress them, then we can actually extract oil from it, and then we can see the oil. In milk, when you see the milk, does milk has ghee inside it? Yes, milk has ghee inside it, but can we see it? With the naked eyes we cannot see. But if we apply the process, if we boil the milk and condense the milk and then continue the process, then we can get the ghee. Similarly, is there sugar or sugar crystals inside the sugar cane? Of course there are. But when we open the sugar cane, we don't see sugar crystals. So the sugar cane has to undergo some process and then we can see the sugar crystal which is present there. And the last example Shastras gives is wood. The wood has a fire in it, but we can't see. We have to apply a little fire and then the actual fire which is inside the wood will come out. From where that fire is coming, that fire is there potentially in the wood, but we can't see. We need to apply some process and then it comes out. So just like sesame oil, ghee, sugar crystals or a fire doesn't come out just like that, but we need a process to do it. Similarly, these bodies, from external point of view, we don't see soul, but if we apply a process, then we can see the soul. So to take out different physical elements from the physical things, we need a physical process. But to take out the spiritual soul and experience it, see it face to face, we need a spiritual process. On the day 6, we will see what is that spiritual process to see the soul. Now, can we measure the soul? Can we perceive the soul in laboratory? Like, what is this? This is a weighing scale. Now, if I give you a 10 liters of water and I will say that please find out what is the pH of this water. ये एसिड है कि बेस है, ये वेइंग स्केल लेकर आप इसको पीएच गिन के दिखाओ. So you may say, sorry sir, but this is a weighing scale. We cannot measure pH with this. Okay, then I give you a vernier caliper. Can you give me now the pH of this water? Sorry sir, this is a good instrument, but it cannot measure the pH. Okay, forget that. I am standing in front of you. I am giving you this pH paper. Can you tell me what is my age? I am giving a scientific instrument to identify what is my age using this pH paper. No sir, because pH paper is not used for measuring age or a weight or even a height. If I give an electronic microscope and if I ask you what is the pH of this water, you cannot tell. Why? Because all these instruments, they are all of instruments of a science, material science, but they are of the different fields. Though they are from the science only, but they are of the different fields, and instruments of one field cannot be used to measure parameters of another field of the same science. When they're just measuring matter on material science, we cannot interchange the instruments. Similarly, when people say that I can believe in soul only when you can show me in laboratory. But our instruments in laboratory, they deal with one part of science, that is material science. We can deal with only solid, liquid and gas, maximum electronic and magnetic energy. But we cannot deal with subtle energies of mind, intelligence, what to speak of the next subtle energy which is spiritual. So to understand the soul, we need a process, but that is spiritual. In that process, we need instruments and we need gadgets, but they also need to be spiritual. So what is that spiritual gadgets? What is that spiritual process to see the soul? That we'll study as we go ahead in this seminar. Now let's go to some more facts about the soul. So what are the qualities of soul? We know the quality of body, we know the quality of mind, but to understand soul, what are the different characteristics of soul? First characteristic is Sat. Sat means eternal or it's everlasting. It cannot die. It lives long. Chit, that soul is full of knowledge. There is no dearth of knowledge in the soul. And then third is Ananda, that soul is full of bliss. So that's why, because that is our quality, Sat, Chit, Ananda. We all are eternal. We all are full of knowledge. We all are full of happiness. And that's why we all have this innate desires to live forever. Is there anybody who wants to die? Nobody wants to die. From where this desire came, from where this idea or concept came to live eternally? Because we all are souls and soul has an innate quality of living eternally. Chit, full of knowledge. We all want knowledge. We all want extra memories. We all want different memory cards to increase our memory to know everything, all news we want to know. From where these tendencies are coming? From the soul. And we all want happiness. We all want bliss. From where this is coming? Because that's our real identity. Now once we know that we are Satchidananda, some people may say, yeah, I know. Satchidananda means actually God. And because we are also Satchidananda, so we are also God. So are we God? No. We are not God and we can never become God. But we are just a child of God or simple minute part and parcel of God. Just like there is a fire and there is a spark which comes out of the fire. Similarly, God is a big Satchidananda, and from that when an infinitesimal spark comes out, that is called as soul or the child or a part of God. Now let's come to the important topic. What is the tragedy of soul? If soul is Satchidananda, if it's full of bliss, full of knowledge, eternal, why then it's so anxious, so fearful, so distressful? Why is feeling so much pain? Why is going through so much anxiety? Why is going through so much stress? So what is the definition of stress? Stress means expectations minus reality. We may have so many expectations in life, but when the expectations are not met, the reality stands far down from the expectation. The difference between the expectation and reality, that is called as stress. When we expect something but it doesn't happen, that creates stress. We as a soul, we have so much expectation. We have expectation to live forever, but body doesn't live forever. We have expectation to gather all the knowledge of this world, but our memories doesn't support even that. We all have as a soul so much need to be happy, but the body, after some time of our age, it just gives pain, pain and pain. Each cell of our body is potentially the cause of greatest pain. Any cell can just convert into a cancerous cell and can create so many problems. So the soul who has so many good qualities and is eternally happy, when is trapped, when is enveloped by this body which has completely different characteristics. Soul is Satchidananda, but body is Asat, Achit and Nirananda. So when the soul is trapped by such body which cannot fulfill the unlimited desires of the soul, because this body is completely limited. So unlimited desires, but a very limited device in which we are trapped. That actually causes so much stress, because the expectation minus reality leads to stress. Just like if a diabetic person visits a doctor and doctor first times identify that he is diabetic, and he tells him that from today onwards, sir, you should not eat any sweets. Now suppose the next day visits a marriage party and there he sees two, three sweets which are all his favorite dishes. He really wants to eat them. He is about to eat them. And then he realizes that yesterday I visited a doctor and doctor said no more sweets. So just imagine yourself in that position. You have desire to eat the sweets, but the body which you are carrying, the pancreas which you are there, they are not able to process it. That creates stress. Similarly, you extend that to million times, and soul has so many desires, but we are trying to fulfill all the desires on a bodily level. That creates stress. When we do this demonstration for implementing or understanding this point, we call for four boys on the stage. First boy, we gave him uh, surgical gloves to wear. Another boy, we give a wicket keeper's gloves, cricket gloves. Third boy, we give boxing gloves in his hands. And then the fourth boy is bare hands. And then we supply everyone a needle and a thread. And the competition is they all have to put that thread from the eye of the needle. So then, as soon as we start the time, whom you think will do it first? Of course, person who is bare hands, he immediately accomplishes the task. Who is next? Next is surgical gloves wala. Then he somehow makes it because he's not used to surgical gloves, but then after some time he manages to do it. After so much struggle and patience, then maybe the cricket gloves person, he may try to needle it. But then the person with the boxing gloves, his situation is pathetic. He is not able to sometimes even pick up the needle and thread, because his gloves is just like a big punch and a thumb. That's all. So one time when we did this demonstration, we asked the people, what was your experience? How did you feel? So person who was having the boxing gloves, he said, Prabhu ji, हमारे स्कूल में जब कंपटीशन होता था, I used to stand first. But the only problem you did is you gave me these gloves. So I have a capacity to do it very fast. You just remove my gloves and then start a competition. I can do it just like this. But because you gave these gloves, that is stopping me. That is putting hindrance to my capacity and abilities. Tragedy of the soul, it's same thing. We have so much potential. We have so much power, so much energy, so many desires to fulfill. But this body in which we are trapped, this body is not the great device to fulfill all our desires. and that's why we feel distress. So identifying that we are not this body, we are a soul, gives us so many benefits. So let's try to understand what are the different benefits we get when we understand our identity as soul. First and foremost is it gives a joy, a relief of understanding our right identity. One time, Jawaharlal Nehru, first Prime Minister of India, he visited a mental asylum. We all know the story. And a mentally sick person who was sitting there, he asked him, "Hey sir, who are you?" And Panditji said, "I am the Prime Minister of India and I have just come here to visit the hospital and to see how you all are doing." The person said, okay. You just stay here for some time and you will be all right. When I came here on the first day, I was also saying the same thing that I am the Prime Minister. But doctor is good, you take some treatment and you will be all right. So when a person doesn't understand his real identity, we call him lunatic or pagal. So when we are living this life and full life long, we are identifying with this body. Whenever we see in the mirror, we think that this is me, this is me, this is me. We are trying to fit this body. We are trying to identify with this body. But then we are called as fools or a mad person. So mad person cannot be happy because it doesn't know what to do, why to do, who am I. So first thing what we get by understanding soul is a relief that we are not this body, we are soul. Why it's a relief? Because body has so many limitations. One IS officer, I'm forgetting his name, he's from a Bhilla community. He's from a very low backward class. When he came for his post graduation admissions, he's from medical background. When he was doing his MD, in his MBBS he was actually a topper from a Mumbai University. So when he approached for post graduation, he got the best of the colleges. But when he went for admission process, he was delayed. Being delayed, he was in so much anxiety. So he took his all papers, mark sheets, certificates, and then he came on the counter on the admin department and he submitted his file. Seeing his first caste certificate, the person became annoyed and he said, "You people, you don't deserve any education, but because of government policies, you are getting education. कहाँ कहाँ से आ जाते हैं, लायकी तो आपका है नहीं. You don't deserve to come into such big college, but because of your degrees, you are coming and taking admission. But you don't understand simple fact that you should come on time. That is your level." So this person became so morose that I am not here because of my caste. I am here because of my merits, because of my intelligence. And without seeing his mark sheet, he was just making comments because he is born in some low class. Not low class, but considered by this person as a low class. But then this person, as he was studying his postgraduates, in third year, he came in contact with ISKCON devotees. And he attended this course of 6 sessions, Gita for Life. And in that he realized that we are not this body, we are soul. After the class, he came to the facilitator and he said, "Sir, thank you so much. I am so happy today." And he said, "Why?" He said, "Because till now, everybody was identifying me as a low born, as a scheduled caste or the scheduled tribe, whatever. And that gave me so much pain when I was discriminated because of my caste, because of my body being born in some caste. But today I understand that all these people were wrong. I'm not this body, I'm not this caste, I'm not this low born, I'm the soul who is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So I'm so happy just to know that I'm not this body, I'm soul." So this is a real identity, the right identity we get. Second thing, once we get the right identity, we start getting or looking for right happiness. Just like first day we saw 4 levels of happiness, at the level of senses, at the level of mind, and at the level of ego. But now we saw that all these 4 happinesses are not going to make us happy because we are not body, we are not mind, we are not intelligence, we are not ego. They belong to us, but we are soul. So when we identify that we are not this body, but we are soul, now we can look for right kind of happiness. Just like one time one saint, Ramanujacharya in South India, he was visiting Kaveri, river Kaveri, for taking bath. He took his bath and after taking bath, he just came out. After coming on, there was one person who was envious of Ramanujacharya. He just spat on him. उसके ऊपर थूक दिया. तो जैसे Ramanujacharya was spat on by this person, he immediately returned to the Mother Kaveri river and took his dip again and then cleaned himself and again came out. As soon as he came out, this person was still standing there and again he spat on him. Ramanujar again turned back, went to the river, cleaned himself, took bath, came out. Again on the way back, this person again spat on him. This happened hundreds of times. After hours of this activity, person was envious, he became tired of spitting. And then he just surrendered his life in front of Ramanujacharya, offered his prostrated pranams and said, "Sorry sir, but I want to understand. I'm troubling you so much, but still you are not saying even a word. You are not getting angry. You are not disturbed. You are not unhappy, but you are completely calm, composed, and happy. How can you do that?" Ramanujacharya said that I should thank you rather than becoming angry. He said, "Why?" He said, "Because of you, I could go in this divine river and not just clean my body, but benefit my soul by taking bath in this river. And that's why I should thank you and not get angry." So many times, now in this case, if you see, Ramanujacharya is being tormented at all the four levels. On the level of body or senses, he is feeling pain. With hundreds of times going back and forth and taking repeated cold water bath, it's not very pleasurable or happy for the body, but still is doing that, but not feeling pain. On the level of mind, mentally he is going through so many emotions because the person is insulting him, but still is not feeling the pain. On the level of intelligence, it's not so logical thing to do because in a day you can take maybe 1, 2 or 3 baths, but hundreds of times you are taking bath. Intellectually, it's not appealing. Ego, of course, it is not just unclean, but somebody is spitting on him, so it's an insult. So ego is also under pressure. So all the four levels, he is feeling unhappiness and misery, but still he is composed. Why? Because he has transported himself to the next level of happiness, and that is the happiness at the level of soul. So when we identify ourselves at the level of soul, then we transgress or surpass all these lower four levels and get situated at the level of soul and can tap the eternal happiness. Third important thing, the benefit of understanding soul is we, after getting the right understanding of what is right happiness, then we start expecting right things from right sources. From our bodies, when we understand that they are not permanent but temporary identities, then we start expecting rightly from our bodies. We don't try to expect permanent happiness or fulfilling happiness from our body's senses or kicks which we get through the senses. Many youngsters, many people around the world, they go through this habit of addictions or drugs. Why? Because they want happiness in life, and when life becomes stressful and their expectations are not fulfilled, they try to just get in some drugs, some chemicals, some alcohol, some cigarettes, some tobacco, so that they feel some happiness at the level of senses. But this happiness, it cannot touch the soul. And so whatever doses they take, ultimately they fall short of giving them happiness. And then their doses starts increasing, increasing and increasing, and one day they just inject themselves with such high doses of narcotics that they just fall dead. Now, why this happened? Because these persons are trying to find happiness at the level of senses. If I give you a lemon to squeeze and take out the juice, if I say that please give me one bucket full of juice from this one lemon, you will say impossible. Any hard, I can squeeze this lemon, but I cannot get you a bucket full of juice. Similarly, when we understand this body is not our real entity, any hard we squeeze this body, any hard we squeeze our senses, any hard we try to squeeze juice from this body, it's not going to fulfill the soul because it's a different level of happiness. So we start understanding what is the right expectation of our body. Our body can give us happiness, but not the ultimate happiness. So we stop expecting the happiness from the body and start living at the level of soul. And then we start having right kind of dealings with others. Hmm. When we deal with people, generally we only deal with their bodies. Hmm. In a family or in a village or in a country, we deal with people according to their bodies, their minds, their intelligence, their habits, their behaviors, but we tend to neglect them as a soul. But when you understand that this person is someone who is a deep person, who is beyond just his apparent behavior or his body color or his skin color or his shape of his body, but he is a spiritual being apart from the body, then we can actually connect with that person. And when we start connecting with the person, then we can connect with anybody. We can connect with our families, we can connect with society, we can connect with our whole village, whole nation, or even different nations, different caste and creeds. We can treat them equally. Srila Prabhupada said that there are so many peace conferences happening all over the world to unite the world under one flag, just like United Nations. But every year in United Nations, the flags are increasing. People are finding for peace, but are not able to get everybody on the same page. Why? But till the time we are dealing with the bodily platform, we will always make distinctions of nationality, distinctions of gender. Then comes the woman empowerment or woman rights or rights, child abuse, or different nations fighting, different religions fighting, different genders fighting. Why? Because we are trying to deal with people on the wrong platform, that is body. So when we identify on the soul, then only spiritual people can unite the world. Just like here we see that in ISKCON, when people come together, they don't look for their own caste, they look for even their nationalities are different, their previous religions are different, but they are happily coming together and dancing. Why? Because now they are relating with each other on the level of soul and not on the bodily platform. So once we understand that, okay, Prabhuji, we are not this body, we are soul, we know how to feed the body. Just like in a car, we know that we need to fill the tank with the fuel, maybe petrol or a diesel or a CNG. But same thing cannot apply to the driver. A driver cannot just open his mouth and drink petrol or diesel and say that, okay, now I am also full, I can go on a long journey. No. Driver has to go and stop at some food mall and eat some pizza, burger, juice, whatever he wants to. So his food is different and the car's food is different. But once we understand that we are not his body, we are soul, till now we know that what is the feeding for the body. पेट भरने के लिए क्या करना है हम जानते हैं, लेकिन सोल को भरने के लिए how to make that soul happy, how to nourish that soul, how to charge him, how to reawaken him, enliven him, how to energize him, that is another different topic. So now our life should change. It is not like that when you go for a long journey, we neglect the car. The car has to be filled with the fuel. So similarly, our body are supposed to be taken care. We should act for the body, but we cannot just act for the body and neglect our own self, that is soul. So what we need to do is, after identifying this soul, we need to do a right investment on the level of soul. So what is the right investment or nourishing or energizing for the soul? So right energizing for the soul is the soul when it gets a spiritual food. Oh, what is spiritual food? Spiritual food can come from the Supreme Personality who is a Supreme Spirit. So when we, who are very, very small, tiny spirit sparks, when we come in contact with the spiritual whole, the God, then we can get our nourishment, then we can get charged. So when we understand God and start connecting ourselves with God, so in a few next topics, we will be discussing who is that God? Does he really exist? Does he have any existence? If he really exists, how can I connect my soul with that God? What is that process? What is that yoga? That process to connect myself with the God. And once I connect with that God, then that spiritual spark can get energy and nourishment and feel the permanent happiness. So friends, we'll stop here today. What we discussed today in the last part is benefits of understanding this soul. First is right identity to live for. Second, right happiness, to look for the right expectation from our own bodies and senses. Then fourth is right dealings with other people on the level of soul to get unity in diversity. And fifth, right investment in our lives so that souls are nourished. In the first part, we saw who are we? Are we these bodies or somebody beyond this body? We saw common sense, we saw observing ourselves, we saw observing others. Then with the science also we saw near-death experience, reincarnation, and from Bhagavad Gita we saw two types of reincarnations. And then we studied some more facts about the soul, different questions asked about the soul, and then benefits of understanding the soul. So here we will stop for the today. If you have any questions, please write on the comment box. You can ask the questions and definitely we'll get replies. Thank you so much for patiently attending this class. So next day, on the day 3, we will be discussing who is God. Is he just a concept or he really exists? Is there any scientific proof for the existence of God? How to understand God? How to get knowledge, complete knowledge about the God? All these questions will be answered in our next session, that is day 3. Does God exist? Thank you all so much for your participation. Hare Krishna.